You might say, I'm a bit of a TTRPG fan. For those of you who don't know what that is, tabletop role-playing game. You might have indeed watched me play them on the internet, like Titan's Grave or Mentopolis, and maybe that helped inspire you to get a group of friends together and dive into your own adventure. I mean, it's okay if your inspiration was Stranger Things or Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not disappointed, that's fine. Whether you're playing Dungeons & Dragons or one of the other gajillion games out there, there's a good chance your campaign failed miserably. And no, you didn't mess up by having a party made entirely of chaotic neutral rogues. You messed up by having too many people in that party because all those people can't find a time when everyone can gather. It's the same problem you may have had when trying to schedule a work meeting with a bunch of people or picking a restaurant that appeals to everyone. Once your group gets to a certain size, good luck. But that's not just life experience talking here. Scientists have done the math, and they have identified the exact number of people that will probably sink your D&D campaign and also everything else you're trying to plan. So this whole thing actually got started when a trio of physicists got fed up with all of the scheduling polls they were filling out, and they decided to calculate how likely it was that those polls would fail, and there'd be no time that everyone could meet. Scheduling a meeting is perfectly suited to a branch of mathematics called combinatorics, which deals with counting. And your odds of getting that meeting scheduled successfully depend on three things: the number of people in your group, the number of time slots they have available to choose from, and the number of those available time slots that each person rejects. To make the calculations easier, this research team assumed that each person rejects the same number of time slots, and all time slots are equally likely to be rejected. No wiffle-waffling either. You have to give either a yes or a no to each option. And here is the equation they derived, which calculates the probability that none of the times will work for literally everyone in the group. But you don't need to call up the nearest knowledge cleric or beseech the god Akma to explain it to you. I have got an example ready to go. Let's plan a hypothetical Dungeons & Dragons campaign. We will be meeting once a week for a few hours. And no, I will not be DMing. That's too much responsibility, and it's Brennan's job. This is my hypothetical, so he's on board for this too. The official Dungeon Master's Guide recommends that in addition to the DM, you have a party of 3 to 5 adventurers. So let's recruit 3 more of my friends, and we'll plug in a 5 wherever this equation has the letter M. Now let's pick a number to use for that cursive L there, the total blocks of time we have to choose from. Now let's pretend we're not just playing in a fantasy world, but living in one, because none of us work over the weekend. So Saturdays and Sundays each have 3 possible blocks: morning, afternoon, and evening. And then there are weekdays. Since this campaign is just going to be for fun, we can't meet during the workday. Let's also say that all of us work standard 9-to-5 jobs and none of us take our work home with us. Again, a fantasy world. And it is a truth universally acknowledged that no one wants to go anywhere on a Monday evening. That gives us 4 more blocks and 10 total, so the cursive L in our fancy equation becomes a 10. That just leaves the R, the number of potential meeting times each person rejects. Now, depending on what R is, we might be guaranteed to find a time that works for everyone. That will happen when the size of the group multiplied by the number of rejections is less than the total number of time slots under consideration. So in my hypothetical, if each person only rejects 1 time slot, there will be a time that works for everyone. But as soon as each person rejects 2 time slots, it becomes possible that our D&D campaign will fail before it even starts. And by possible, I mean that we'd have a 0.061% chance of not finding a time that everyone can agree on. But obviously that rejection rate is a tad optimistic. We have families and stuff. So what happens if each of us is already booked for half of the 10 possible meeting times? If you do the math, we have a whopping 71% chance of failure. And that chance of failure changes a lot with each person you add or remove from the group. For example, if we only have 4 people to deal with, we'd have just better than a 50-50 chance of finding a time everyone can attend. But if we have the maximum recommended party size, that percent drops to 15. Meanwhile, if those 6 people are just a bit pickier, rejecting just 1 more time slot, we only have a 4% chance of succeeding. And that's just for scheduling 1 session, and it's not even considering the fact that I want my campaign to be weekly. So really, it's no wonder that many TTRPG adventures fall apart, even with so few people involved. But fortunately, for anyone who organizes even larger groups, the numbers do change a lot based on the total number of possible time slots and how how picky people are. Like maybe you've set aside your dream of a years-long D&D campaign with your friends and just need to schedule a 1-hour work meeting sometime between 9 and 5 o'clock. If everyone is already booked for half of those 40-hour-long slots, your odds are pretty good of getting 5 people in a room, while 6 is a coin flip. But if your coworkers only have prior commitments for just 10 hours per week, then you could probably swing a 14-person meeting without pulling your hair out. Of course, you can also increase your odds of success by redefining success. Like maybe it's okay if one person can't meet at the only time that everyone else can meet. If you're trying to schedule a weekly D&D get-together and only one person can't do, say, Wednesday evening because every 3 weeks they've got a writer's group, maybe you could just not have them there. And you can just go ahead and create like an in-universe explanation for why their adventurer disappears every once in a while. Or maybe instead of diving right into a campaign that'll take you years to complete, you test the waters with different adventures that can each be completed in a single session. Or maybe you and your friends can really live the dream and figure out a way to turn playing TTRPGs into a job. Don't ask me to join though. I am too busy.